Hello. You must be here either from a Twitter link or X if you're really willing to call it that, or a random YouTube recommendation because the algorithm has been doing that for some reason for the past few months, but it shouldn't be that much of a deal if you're watching this and willing to go through all of it. But in short, I'm ranking all the perks in Fallout New Vegas. This only really includes level up perks, not the challenge perks. I might do a video on that unto itself. But to just lay the groundworks of how this will go, I have 804 hours on PC on the Ultimate Edition and 20 something hours or more on Xbox before I move on to PC. So even though I might not have all the time in the world compared to people who have been playing the game ever since it came out in 2010, they I still understand where I'm coming from with this and watching them play it and watching other people play it with different kinds of goals whenever they play the game, either just to role play or to min max. It's all going to be taken into account when I rank these. The only thing necessary to be explained here are the categories I'm choosing. So, bugged and unusable should be pretty self explanatory. Perks that are either unusable in their current state, as if you don't mod them, they're basically not working, or the a certain functionality of the perk is gutted so hard that you can't perfectly use it to its intended form. VATS is also self-explanatory. The reason why I'm doing this is mostly just I think VATS was added onto Fallout 3 not only as a measure of keeping the game a little bit more enticing gameplay wise and as a reference to the aiming systems of Fallout 1 and 2 with the more precise shooting they could do, but also because they must have realized that the first person shooting aspect of Fallout 3 wasn't all there. So on adding a very cool slow mo menu that you can shoot someone's head off or shoot their leg off in 2008, yeah, no way that it wouldn't have worked, and they just carried it over to New Vegas. So that's why I'm putting it here. Perk point wasted. I feel like there's certain perks in this game that even if you just pick them for the role playing aspect, they're not gonna do anything functionally useful to you, even if you try your hardest to make them work. Reliable are perks that I feel, even if they're not the best choices, they're still gonna get you something that you're gonna use for the rest of the run at least once in a while. Build dependent. I put this above reliable. It should read as the contrary because build dependent reads more like, oh, this is too niche. But the thing is that in this game, the more build dependent perks you have on top of each other, it makes your character better and better and better. Even if you don't have, oh, I don't have life giver, I don't have this, that, or this perk or that perk that makes my character more, survival. Survival. It makes the rest of the game more survivable. My apologies, but at the end of the day, if you have like and stay back with uh, shotgun surgeon, even though you might not have like all the other gun perks, that's still like really good for what it is, and you can clear a bunch of encounters that way. So that's what I think puts build dependent above reliable. Straight good are perks that, in spite of being build dependent or not, they're gonna impact how you play massively, and they make the way that you end up playing either a lot easier or a lot more interesting. Then always pick, I think, is gonna be kind of a more or less varied category because even though it says always pick, you should read it more as always picked with a parentheses because I might put perks in this category that make you go wait, but this perk is for melee and this perk is for guns. They're saying that I should do a hybrid build, or like this perk is like for this kind of character, and that doesn't necessarily equate to that, but more so that no matter what kind of character you choose with what build, even if the builds are different, or if the player that's using them, it is always going to end up with something good. So with enough preamble, let's get onto this lady killer. I put it in very reliable, having 10% damage against uh, people of other genders in this game always ends up helping. But what I'll rank it as here, right? This is not to constitute, right, that for some reason male characters matter more than female characters, but in this game, a lot of the enemies that you are fighting for most of the difficult parts or fighting en masse are male, right? So Legion, 100% males. Marked Men for the Divide, 100% males. Ghost people, I'm pretty sure they're marked as males just from how they look, but I don't know if they have that set in the engine. But regardless, I think it's always reliable to have 10% damage, and then the dialogue options are always tacked on top. There's no like, I don't think even if you pointed out a specific example or like, oh, this quest makes this is made so much easier if you have uh, Lady Killer or if you have Confirmed Bachelor. But at the end of the day, right, it doesn't really. Also, I said Lady Killer here. This is Black Widow. You can already see I'm very good with words. But in short, this is how I think that these journal perks are. They're pretty good additions to the game itself for role playing, but for actual gameplay purposes, they're pretty unnoticeable. But they still give you something that's valuable. Night Person is the first one I'm gonna put in Perk Point Wasted. It's a neat idea if you want to do like a character that's not supposed to be like entirely human, or some part of them has been altered, so you suddenly get like night vision. But at some point, you can only really turn your head to so many answers until you realize that you have a brightness slider in the options. So don't really need this. Again, I wouldn't say it's like completely useless, because if you are playing in a setting where you either can't have certain uh like if you're, I don't know, a kid in the early 2010s and you can't have your TV too bright, and then you're using this perk so you can see still, like, yeah, like you're playing late at night and you don't want to burn your eyes and you don't want your parents coming into your room. That could be one situation, but that's so specific that I had to make up something to justify picking this perk, and at that point, you know that it's a waste. Heave ho, right? The first build dependent in some aspect, right? This perk is. Sorry if I pause. I am drinking water, like you should if you are watching this, because I am going to take a while. So strap in. But in general, there is not a situation where you won't want to throw stuff faster or farther. It kind of equates to being both because of how the engine works, but there's no situation where just having more reach with thrown weapons is a bad idea. The only real version of this that I've noticed is that some people say, "Oh, you should use this, and then you should uh, pick loose cannon because you get the range from that, and then the quickness from this." But I've tested it personally, and it doesn't like equal out to be that good. In all fairness, like it's so unnoticeable, and you only really use loose cannon if you're doing a build that's not using thrown weapons as much. Like you're using like throwing spears and knives instead of grenades. And at that point, you might as well focus on one lane instead of trying to make a perk better than it is, or a trait better than it is. I'll also do a trait tier list after this one. But yeah, straight good, you know, early on for the explosives. If you have it tagged, it's really easy to get. Also, I'm considering the requirements as well for these. I just have them memorized, but if I have to look something up, it won't be that long. But yeah, for the explosive strength 5, very actionable. Yeah. Hunter. Now, I wouldn't say that this is entirely reliable because there's only so many animal enemies in the game that you're gonna want to focus on until you're losing sight of what is really worthy of a fight. Like, yeah, no, you get to hunt out geckos easier, but deathclaws are still gonna rip you apart. Um, I mean, most enemies. What would be considered the strongest? One of the stronger ones, like Yaogwai, and you don't really meet Yaogwai that early into the game unless you're doing like level 1 honest hearts, or you're purposefully looking out for an enemy that's really strong in the beginning. And sure, if you want to do like a hunter play style and like really lean into the survival aspect of hardcore mode, this can be really good for that. But in comparison to other perks, it is quite dependent on what you're doing with the rest of your character, and it would be more of a cherry on top than something that I would choose willingly all the time. Like I'd pick the ginger perks because that is a guaranteed 10% damage against everything, and this is only like a 75% critical chance increase, not like 70% crit damage, right? But actually, no, it is an increased damage. I'm smart. But at that point, it's only a critical damage increase or chance increase against damage. It only increases against certain kinds of enemies, whereas you're mostly fighting a lot of humans in this game that are un- uh, mostly mostly what you're gonna fight against for the remainder of the game. So even if this early on helps a lot, it kind of falls off at the from early to mid game even, unless you're like willingly going out and hunting for animals, which is debatable because then you have perks like this entomologist, and there sure are way stronger insect enemies like cazadors and mantises and that sort of jazz instead of animals. So that's something to keep in mind. And this perk just doesn't work. You might have seen YouTube show after YouTube show after YouTube video is complaining about this. So if you know, you know. If you don't know, this perk is supposed to give energy weapon resistance if you're wearing metal armor or glasses, but it's improperly labeled in the game. So it's supposed to defend against energy weapons, but it only defends against energy, which is a variable that doesn't exist. So it just basically you waste science and a bunch of time that you could be using any other of these level 2 perks for a perk that does nothing. So it's a pretty bad case of that. Uh, in uh, this is debatable, right? Because a perk point is a perk point, but I feel like even at this early stage of the game, right? Because I've seen all the time people like level 2, like you put an extra level into agility and you make your character cooler. Or you're gonna do like luck 10, but you only put 7 on luck, because then on level 2 you're getting luck up to 8, and then you're doing all the other stuff. But I think statistically, there's only so much that you can get from special point increases until you're kneecapping yourself of other bonuses that you could be getting early on. And if it's for something like, oh, I want to meet a strength requirement, but I might have my strength too low, yeah, this is really great, like later on. But I don't think it's that great in comparison to other level 2 perks, and it's only really there to either fix a problem that you didn't account for, or it's there so you have planned out stuff later to like max out special stats or something. If you have a lot of free perk points and you don't know what to do with yourself, this, oof, this is rough. So this perk, it's not bugged, right? Might as well be with just how useless it is. Um, this perk, I'm pretty sure it's called. Yeah, it gives you jump rounds basically. You get it from Dead Money DLC because that DLC is supposed to be, wow, you're really in dire need of ammo and resources, so every bit of scrap you can get is a scrap worth something. But at some point, you might as well be like walking on eggshells, and the eggshells have Lego inside of them, and the Legos have a rusty nail that's gonna give you tetanus. Cause like, at what point are you like that desperate for ammo that you're gonna waste like scrap metal, which not only is used for like a bunch of other useful stuff in the game, like making components for explosives or weapon repair kits, or other items that are a lot more useful, or scrap metal just in general being the item that you use to yeah, like repair old machinery or finish quests. At what point you're giving that up and tin cans, not bent tin cans, just straight tin cans. You can't unbend them. You can't go to a workshop bench and then, or go to a workbench and unbend unbend the tin cans so you can use them for something else. It is just pure nonsense. Why you'd want to use this perk in any given situation, even in the DLC that it got added. At least the night person gives you more leeway at night, right? Like it activates and it's consistent. This you have to go out of your way to make shittier ammo that breaks down your gun faster. It deals less damage for what the roleplay. Generally, the only time I've seen people use junk ammo in any gameplay of Fallout New Vegas is Fallout Dust, and that's a mod that forces you to do that. So that's how bad you know that it is. Light touch. Here's the thing. Usually, in my tier list, if I was really biased, I'd always put this as always pick because I always pick this whenever I play the game because I play with light armor, crit builds, and I know that not everyone does that. A lot of people like to go for heavy armor, or they like to go to some extent at least try and avoid, you know, being shot at with no armor on and then lose half of their health or something. But my counter argument, it's only 45 repair, 6 agility, 6 luck, right? Or no, just 6 agility. 6 luck is on our other perks. 6 agility is like kind of, it's really kind of normal. Like if you have, let's say, a small frame, you can like level up in Good Springs. And I know that there's the bugs that you can have all the perks from the else. They can have like all the dead money perks, and then respec in Good Springs, and then you still get to keep them. But right, the thing with that is even if you level up in Good Springs, you get uh yeah, you can like respec in Good Springs, take out small frame, and you can still have a really good perk that, apart from all else, gives you a 5% crit chance whenever you're wearing light armor or no armor. So you can just be walking around naked as well. If you're doing like challenge runs where your character doesn't have any armor on, then this is good for that. And you get less critical chance from enemies, which is such a BS mechanic, by the way. Because if you don't know if your enemy is gonna deal like a regular amount of damage or if they're gonna deal triple amount of damage for some reason, then you can't evade it or avoid it, ahead of time. But this just makes it less likely that you're gonna do it. And having 45 repair at that point in the game, like really early on, you're almost halfway to repair cap in terms of skill, right? Almost 50 repair, and that gets you a lot in terms of weapon condition, and then selling off your weapons that you're not using and maintaining the ones that you do. So again, sure, I don't see anything wrong with this perk unless you actively choose to equip armors that are medium or heavy. But I digress. This is, yeah. I mean, Old World Gourmet. It's a neat idea, right? It's supposed to be a dead money perk, and in all honesty, if you did go for a dead money like level 1 character, or just doing like a really, like, you know how Hunter, you like really leaning into the survival aspect, this could do that too, but in a different way. It's a good idea that you get, better healing from junk food and items that you might not have valued that much at first, but you can always just pick up actual food at the end of the day that'll heal you more, and then get the survival skill to make that food heal you better and give you bigger bonuses depending on what kind of uh, ailments it gives. So yeah, it's a neat idea, but it falls short. Um, this is build dependent. Nah, I think this is reliable. I don't think it's that good, but if you're doing certain kinds of builds where your character is shooting off a bunch of bullets or rounds from either guns or explosive weapons, then just the added DPS from this can really save you when you need it to. At the same time, though, um, I do admit that guns 30, agility 5. Yeah, you could be picking this and then you can pick this after. But also, how much mileage are you gonna get out of just, you know, like reloading faster if you kill just things in one shot, anyways? Which the best guns in the game are mostly one shot. They're like heavy hitters that deal damage in very quickly in short bursts, or they pick off your enemies from far away. And it's not like every weapon in New Vegas necessarily needs reloads. And that is to say that not every gun is topping up the best weapons in the game. Like there is a solid like gap between like early game guns than like or late game guns, and then energy weapons that outdo the both. So it's something to keep in mind. The of course the bonus still adds to it. So you might be thinking, "Oh, that's confusing. Why would you think about it like that?" But there are several types of weapons that you only get so much out of reloading, rather than just either switching weapons for the occasion. And something that people don't tell you is that switching ammo types does actually reload all your ammo if you switch back and forth, which you'd be like, oh, but wouldn't that just be like an effortless weapon? And yeah, it definitely is. But you need to know that ahead of time, and thinking about it, it's only so much mileage you get out of reloading faster rather than switching to another gun when you need to. But I know that a lot of people don't always carry like 5 guns with them. A lot of them just use one gun for a while and then they kind of wait to get a better gun than that, which is a completely fair way to play the game. But on my experience, this only has served to make my builds a little bit more smoother, or make combat run a little bit more smoothly. But it doesn't make or break any sort of situation. But it's still really good for what it is. Um, this is just kind of sad. Big head, the big 5 head perk. The problem with this is that if it were anything for the problem with this is that you have just a better version of this perk that already existed, that's comprehension, right? So in what case do you exactly need this to make your character even better? Like, oh, I need to hack multiple. I had to hack like 5 terminals, one after the other. But like time stops in between when you're hacking a terminal, and also, if you're having to do with time problems, remember that the time that the skill book, that not the skill book, the skill magazine, like it applies its effect is in real world time rather than in game time. So it can just stay for like a minute, and you're okay. So I don't understand the point of trying so hard with, a mechanic that, it has its uses, but at the end of the day, there's only so much that you can do with magazines. The only real situation that I can see this being useful is like late game when you already have comprehension and you just choose this with Drupal stories, so you have your crit bonus from that magazine for a lot longer. But if you just have multiples of those, or you just have the crafting recipe from another perk, it's just not that useful by then. It surely can make your builds a lot better, but it doesn't do it quite like the other ones do. Swift learner. Now, here's the problem with this one. A few people think that Swift learner is actually really good, so they can get higher levels across the main game, especially if you do have stuff like skilled that just straight up tanks your level ups overall, where you can just do one level and then get a swift learner, and then you can set yourself back on course. But my problem with this is, I think from me playing the game so much, maybe it's a little bit skewed, but I have the impression that to some degree the game is made very balanced, not towards being like a challenge, but more so the progression of it. There's no way that you can do all the content and then be like, oh, but I'm only like 40 levels. I need to keep doing side quests. I always feel like I reach a happy middle term with my progression as a character in the game, and then how far into my levels I am. So I feel to some extent this can be really good, but other times it just falls short of doing something that other perks do. And you also just get like plus 10 XP from sleeping in an owned bed, like at the layer key 38. So this I love being able to speak English properly. And some of you might say, "Oh, but doesn't Swift Learning go up to several ranks? You can actually get more XP later on as well." You can, but at what point you should be getting that XP to, grab perks that will alter the gameplay versus perks that just make the number on your level bar higher every time you do something. And that's just overall how I feel about it. I'd still put it at like the bottom of reliable, but it's like the very last choice that I do among many other things. Cannibal is a really good role playing perk, right? Do I make a role playing category for this? No. Um, it is like a good role playing perk, I feel like, and it does add a lot more character into the game, especially considering the quests that it has an effect. But also, just from how much you're giving up, like having to waste time in between, eating bodies to just eating regular food, and then having to eat like what 15 people or more. I don't remember now, but you have to eat a lot of people just to get Dine and Dash, and then that's when the perk gets better. So if the perk only gets better after you pick it, like later on by you using it, it's a neat idea, but I don't think it works necessarily that well. And I've only picked it like once or twice throughout all my playthroughs. Comprehension. It is straight good, I think, which is gonna be a little bit confusing because I don't use it that often anymore. But I think just from looking at it in a general standpoint, I feel like in any gameplay or playthrough of Fallout New Vegas, there's no situation where you wouldn't want to have comprehension, right? Because you're not at 100 points of skill at all at any point all the time. So you can always use a magazine or two or three to get you through a situation easier, or you can start out with comprehension really early on and help yourself with the points that you need. The only reason why I don't use it personally is because I kind of already know where most things are just by nature, and I don't need the perk requirements to stop me from being able to play the game the way that I do. But at the same time, it's still just so good for what it is, right? It's just straight good. And what I consider always pick, I always I don't always pick it though. That's the thing with it. It doesn't make it perfect, and you do need intelligence, as far as I'm concerned. So if you're doing a complete dumbass playthrough, you can't make use of this. Which fair enough, honestly, because you need to be able to read in character. But if it were to be that good, like if it were to be in here at top tier, you it would have no requirements. But yeah. Entomologist is just a better version of Hunter, in my opinion. Does it go past these? Mm, I think it stays like more or less here because even if it does deal with a lot of threats that you can have later on, uh, I will say that the insect enemies, even if they're really um, strong, they're glass cannons. So if you manage to knock down a mantis, a giant mantis, or a cazador where it hurts, like clip a cazador in its wings, it's basically useless and can't defend itself. So yeah, if you're dealing with like a lot of rat scorpions early on, or you want to go through an area that has a lot of cazadors, this can make your life a breeze. But it's definitely not something that you're gonna be on the lookout for unless you're doing like a really specific type of character. Like, oh, I need to make like all the poisons in the world. I need all the cazador poison glands to make a bunch of tremble or whatever, like some really specific situation like that nobody would think of besides me. So that's why it stays there. Um, Now here, I think, right, because this is the thing that trips me up. Where is it? There's a perk in here that has almost the same icon that Educated has right here. I'm pretty sure that this is here and now, and this is Educated. Educated gives you extra skill points every time you level, and here and now it just skips a level for you. In Fallout 3, it always sucks, so I don't know why they brought it over to New Vegas. But yeah, we'll get to that when we get to that. But Educated used to be like, one of those perks that people really respected for what it was. Because you could think, oh man, like there's so much, skill points that I get, and the skill points have been gutted from Fallout 3. You can't just get 20 anymore. So now I have to put effort into it. I have to go and get educated like as early as possible. But the same thing with this is that I'll put it in reliable instead of straight good because I mean there is no situation where you don't want to have more skill points. But at some point you're gonna get to a part in the game where you just have more skill points than you know what to do with. Because in all honesty, you don't need to level all your skills to 100 to have a good character. You can have one or two skills at 100, and then all the other ones can be high, and that's good enough. And educated just helps you get there faster, which if that's what you're looking for, that can definitely help. But in the long term, it can just make playing the game feel a little bit like less balanced, I think, at least in my opinion, because you can have like 100 skill on unarmed. Like if you play it really well and then you just like pick comprehension and educated up, you can have like 100 in a skill by like level 7 or something, or earlier even. So it's a little bit insane, and it makes the game a little bit less enjoyable. I think it is. I think if you want to be completely honest about it, it is just straight good to have more skill points. But I don't always pick it. That's my take on it. Here and now is later on. I'm going to leave it there. Red Child. I used to think that Red Child was really useless until I saw some people using it to a very effective, a very effective degree. But there's still, along with that, there's only so much that you can sacrifice with getting radiation sickness to the downsides that you get. Like if you want to do a character that punches fast and does this and that, but then you have like free agility because of the radiation poisoning, like So I'll put it at build dependent. There's definitely characters that make more use of it and more characters that don't. But if you can make it work, you don't have to use stim packs. You don't have to heal with food items. You can just exist and have regenerating health like it's Call of Duty or something. It's a little bit insane. But yeah. Run and gun. It's like about here ish. The fact of the matter is that I feel like they added this just because they wanted to give more, you know, they wanted to give like more of a cowboy pistolero, ay pistolero, uh, kind of build or kind of character archetype. And if you don't play that, like it's cool that I can aim better while running, but I can always just like you know stop for a little bit and then shoot. It's not like everyone who plays this game is playing it like aforementioned Call of Duty and running every single time that they go past an enemy. But regardless, it is nice to have in a certain kind of build, but it's not really that useful. Um, Travel light. I think travel light is straight good in almost every playthrough. They can have it. Again, it's not an always pick. It's in the same category as these because the problem with it is you never end up in a situation where you don't want to run faster. If you could, my apologies. If you can go faster at any point and get past enemies or run away and get to safety or just whiz by a bunch of places at once, like it makes it a lot easier just to traverse the land. But take into account just how much um you know the better armors in the game have DT, but they're only heavy and medium. You either have to be forced to wear light armor, which is what I do most of the time, or you like wear medium armor, but then or medium or heavy armor, but you unequip it every so often so you can get the bonus from this. Which, yeah, you can get the mileage out of it, but if you don't remember to put the armor on every encounter, then you might shoot yourself in the leg or the face, depending on where they're shooting at you from because you have no armor. But in short, I think there's no downside to having. I mean, in short, there's no downsides to having any of these, right? Unless it's the bugged ones that literally do nothing for you, there's no downside to having a perk that makes your gun sway less when you're shooting at it. There's just different degrees of usability, and I have my opinion about how these go in terms of of their application, but it it's overall just better to have these perks and not have them. Bloody mess. I think bloody mess is a little bit overrated and at the same time underrated. It's hard to explain because 5 damage is still 5 damage, and the gibs that you get are really fun, but you get this really early on, and what ends up happening with me at least is that I always pick bloody mess at the very end, just as an appetizer after the playthrough is basically over. Cause how much mileage you're gonna get out of plus 5 damage really? Like it's free basically, but it's not that noticeable in gameplay besides for the gibs. It's very general and you always need to think about how you're using it. Is it still better than any of these? Uh, do I value 10% more damage against a specific gender rather than uh, better damage in general against everyone. I think like I valued this more, yeah, because it's about 5 damage to everything, 5% damage at least. Demolition expert, build dependent, but it is basically needed to make explosives work. They're already good onto themselves, but just demolition expert just makes it so much better. And then having plus 60 damage to all your explosives is just so good. Um, ferocious loyalty. I put it like over here. I have certain takes about this game. One of them is that companions are really overpowered, and I feel like most people agree with me. Just like plop down Boone into a area full of legionnaires, and he'll make short work of them. And you can do that about any group of enemies with any companion. Unless it's a very specific setting, you can always just rely on your companion to kill the enemies for you. The only situation where that doesn't really happen is on hardcore, where they're the ones that are more fragile. But at the same time, right, you just better be more cautious of it, and then keep them alive instead of having to pick a perk where they protect you from damage. I can only really see this in like a pacifist playthrough where you're the one not actively in combat. But anyhow, uh, fortune. No, it's not fortune. Is this the fortune finder? There's this and there's the other one. Um, Yeah, I'm putting them in advance, but just for a demonstration. Both of these are basically the same thing. This finds you more caps, and this finds you more ammo. I'm pretty sure that this only gets you like plus 30 caps, so it's like here-ish. And then this gets you more ammo, which is like the very bottom of this. Unless you're like playing hardcore, then your ammo is not um as free as you would imagine it would be. Right, and I'm just taking all of these into account as playing hardcore and playing regular standard play. But just having more ammo in general is just better to sell, better to have, and it makes a lot of situations easier to deal with. Gunslinger. This is the first just entirely just VATS build, VATS focus perk. I don't know why I keep saying build. Um, this one is the and compared to this junk rounds, this is just one of the way better perks in the game. Like if you're doing a gun build, right? This is so good. Like unless you're really thinking about but the mathematics of having like more 44 ammo than 44 ammo that does um 44 Magnum ammo that does shoot with higher damage, but I get less of it. Unless you're really getting to the math of that, it's just better in general to have ammo that deals more damage, that penetrates, that you know, way that even just basically the same but better for every kind of ammo. The only ones that it will argue against are like ammo types that are already rare and to themselves. But if you play it right, then that doesn't matter. So this perk is just really good. Is it as good as Demolition Expert? I'd argue it's so, but Demolition Expert just makes your um, things straight up better, whereas you need to go and craft your bullets with uh, this other perk, right? That I don't remember the name of because I'm very good at remembering things. Lead Belly is a waste of a point. It is on the same level that um, these other perks relating to food are, and there's only so much that you can do to get more out of having food than just straight up healing yourself with stim packs. And if you're having water be the thing that heals you consistently, then you're either like doing a specific kind of role play or you're just new to the game, which entirely fair. But yeah, now Mad Bomber. Mad Bomber is really build dependent. It's basically this the explosives version of this perk where you can make just better versions of things you already have, or just make up new weapons that help you really well early on. And in spite of it being locked behind level 6, its accessibility and its usability don't get capped by when you get it in comparison to other perks. So in short, if you're doing an explosives build, it's almost better. It's practically no reason for you to not take this unless you're doing like a really specific kind of build or character archetype. So I think yeah, there's no situation where you don't want this as an explosives character. Shotgun Surgeon is also build dependent, but it is nearing this for just straight good, independent of what character you're doing. I apologize for any pauses that I'm thinking. But yeah, I think that Shotgun Surgeon, it does kind of enable shotguns to be really that better in the game, because there's only so long they can use shotguns for before they stop hitting your targets, or the DT, the damage threshold, just stops them where they are. So this allows you to play shotguns for the rest of the game, and that's really powerful. Professional, I will admit that I haven't gotten much use out of this perk, if at all, but it does sound like for a specific kind of character, it is really good. So I'll put it like in between here and here. Like if you're doing like an assassin kind of character, this is really good. Toughness is up here. Actually, you know what? Toughness might be our always pick, right? Because there's truthfully no way that you can argue that you can't choose toughness and get something good out of it. It is just straight up more defense for any character, and you get multiple ranks of it, and it stacks with other perks that give you damage threshold on top of the damage threshold of your own armor. So there's no situation where you don't want this. Uh, this is just the energy weapons version of this. Okay, I'm gonna have to look up the names now. I apologize severely, but I can't just go being this and this. Just recognize the this icons, lol. But yeah, it gives you a lot more to work with. Handler, it's basically Vigilant Recycler is the better version of Handler, at least for energy weapons, because you can make them overcharge, and then the overcharge versions of the energy cells and microfusion cells and whatnot, they're really good. Like really, really good. It chews for your item condition, but if it can make up for that, it is just so good. You need to have high signs for it, which it does give into consideration, but this also needs high repair, and I don't see anyone complaining about it that way. And having high science in most situations is just straight up better. I think you get like this at like science 70 or so, and at that point it lets you almost get to the point of hacking hard terminals, and you can hack average terminals with that kind of level of science. Commando, second exclusively VATS perk. I like to think that the reason why this goes above this is that even though you do kind of need the accuracy on the pistols a bit more, the weapons that you use better with VATS are almost always two-handed, and then this goes on top with the sniper perk to make your character shoot double two-handed weapons better, independent of if it's a rifle or a sniper. That's how I take it. Cowboy, I love this perk. It's straight up just 25 plus damage to melee and guns. It's so good. But I have to admit that over the years I've kind of thought about it more and more, and it's not that good. It's not. It's still really, really good for a cowboy character, where a character just uses guns on top of explosives, so you can just have the best of both worlds. But yeah, you really need to like hone in on a specific kind of character. But it kind of feels like they made some parts of the game to be played like a cowboy, with dialogue and the weapons that they give you. So it, so this is still powerful, right? You need shotgun surgeon to make this work, but you wouldn't even use shotguns at all if it weren't for this past a certain point. And there's a ton of good, like the lever action shotgun is so reliable, and you there's even more reason to use it on top of that. I still think that this still makes it better though, but yeah, just 25 plus damage to some of the most high damaging per shot weapons in the game is nothing to scoff at. Commando is the same thing, but the problem with it is I'll put it lower even than professional because of a load or order bug. Uh, so how I consider this, I won't consider every bugged perk feature to go towards bugged slash unusable, but I feel like due to the fact that it doesn't take weapons from other DLCs after Honest Hearts, it doesn't work as well because there's so many good uh, automatic kind of weapons like the shoulder machine gun that you get at Lonesome Road or K9000 or Fido, and you just can't use it with this perk because the load order bug just doesn't allow it to because it only uses perks from base New Vegas and it only applies to weapons on base New Vegas and Honest Hearts, which is really sad. But the weapons that it does affect, like a light shining in darkness and the Tommy gun and all that jazz, it is still very good for all that. If we got like a final patch for this game, which we're never gonna get, but if you ever got a final patch for this game, we should get like all the perk fixes in the world and have basically just the finished version of the game with all the perk fixes and finishing up parts of the game that were meant to be finished and giving a proper polish to parts of it that were rushed. This There's several perks that involve sleeping. They're not really amount to anything. Like this just lets you sleep at a campfire, which is pretty good because you find a campfire anywhere, you can sleep on it as well as cook food on it. But this feels like leaning way too hard on the roleplay aspect because most of the time the campfire is going to be right next to a bed already, so they're not going to have a situation where you have like a bunch of beds and no campfire, and a bunch of campfires and no bed. What would you rather choose? All beds and no campfires, or no campfires and no campfires? That is the question, and that would put this at perk point wasted. Living anatomy, 70 medicine. You get a little bit later on, level 8, but it is still 5 damage against basically everything. And you also get to see your enemy's health bar and DT, which, depending on what kind of character you're using, doesn't really matter. But it kind of just adds more elements to the HUD that weren't there before. And it gives you more strategic options. Like if you see that an enemy has high damage threshold, you can switch ammunition types and then make use of that, which is something that you couldn't have done just from looking at them if you unless you're like preparing for the fight beforehand and like looking up on the wiki how much this character has in terms of health and all that, because enemies also, I'm pretty sure, they don't scale to the same level that like Fallout other Fallout games enemies scale, But it's good to have at least a notion of how strong the enemies that you're dealing with are, and this just gives you more information. You do end up getting it later on though, which because of how many good level 8 perks there are, it just kind of gets thrown under the bus. Um, Pack Rat. If you're playing like regular, it's like here, and if you're playing on hardcore, it's always here. So I'd put it like over here. If that makes any sense. Um, I mean, it's one of the situations where like I ask myself, is like it's the scientific method of like, is this a good perk or not? Is there any downside to having less carry weight? And just no. You can carry more items. You can carry more food, more healing, more ammo. If you're playing on a hardcore, more loot that you can drop off and sell that you have no idea what to do with. There's just no situation where this isn't useful. And just the thing with it, it really depends on how you're playing. Like I'm fine with like being almost that uh build not build. I keep saying it. That's the new word that I've fixated on this video. It's not that it's necessarily just the fact that it gives you more carry weight, but also makes things weigh less in general. That helps. But I've been so far really okay with playing with my carry capacity at or just below the max, and I've been fine with it. So it's one of the situations where I do believe that stuff like comprehension, educated are straight good, but I don't always use them. But yeah, quick draw is in the same boat that rapid reload is, but a few layers beneath. I think like here, it's just right beneath. The problem with it is just how dependent on what weapon you're using. Like if you're using a weapon that's really big, like an anti-material rifle or a chainsaw, and you have to pull it out, back in and out just to get the speed bonus from not carrying anything, it's really good. But you're not gonna get anything out of this if you're one of those people that just carry. You just have your weapon drawn at all times instead of holstering it or unequipping it. So there's a certain kind of dependency on that, and at the same time, it only really helps with like certain really niche situations, but it's still good for what it is. Radiation resistance is eh, like beneath here. I don't think it's a waste necessarily, but it would be like one of the last things that I pick ever. Unless I put this over here, yeah, I put this over Swift Learner. This the Imperial perk, you only do this for roleplay because how many, unless you're doing like a straight up evil run where you're killing everyone in Zion or just the white legs and then that's it, and you're not playing it and doing like a honest arts only playthrough, this is really good. But in like what situation would you want to kill exclusively fiends unless you're like a fucking cop that hates drugged out people and you want to kill them in video games to take your anger out on them? Like it doesn't make sense. Like it's just so, you know, like I still think it's like 15 plus damage and like extra protection. It's always good, but yeah. Would I put it above the other ones? Yeah, I would. Stonewall, always good. You basically rid yourself of the capacity of being knocked down, which can be a death sentence if you're fighting death claws, big horners early on. Any enemy that can knock you down to your feet, pretty much, then you just lose that ability to get ganged up on and be confirmed to die. You just lose that, and yeah, you gain extra DT from just melee enemies, which is good because a lot of enemies come at you with melee weapons or unarmed. Strong back is over here, right? I think in terms of application, this is only plus 50 pounds. I'll already do a favor to myself, and I'll put these ones over here. Because even though this is like level 40 something, right? It's basically the same perk. It's just I think the only reason that it exists is for the joke, and that's it. And it's slightly less better because you only get it a lot later into the game. It's still 50 pounds, and this is still 50 pounds. But then this is just everything weighs less. Everything at least that's 2 pounds or less, which a lot of stuff is. So I think in general this has a higher application than these two, depending on how you view it. And in hardcore, it has even better application, which is what is making me put it over the other two. But all these carry weight perks are really solid. Super Slam is kind of broken. Uh, I would say that I think explosives are some of the most powerful weapons in the game, so it'll make me only put it up here. But independent of where it's placed, just having the ability to knock down your enemies to the point where they can't do anything is just so whack. And then you can get it even better depending on like if you're using two-handed melee weapons or and you can also use this with unarmed as well. Like Jesus Christ, and with like other stuff that increases your ability to attack like Slayer or Rushing Water. It just stacks on top of it to create just this pillar of death and destruction. Terrifying Presence. This kind of makes me sad because I wish that this perk did a lot more. It is like really like a role playing like flavor text thing that barely adds any sort of content into the game, which makes me sad for what it is. And you need like speech 70 or speech 50 to get it, which is really a tall ask because you can deal with most situations non-violently with that high of a speech level, and you wouldn't need this. It is just purely for the sake of it, and I know that a lot of people like it for that, and I do appreciate it. But if I look at it compared to all of these ones, it's not that good. This is why this is just the worst version of like other perks, right? I think it's above these actually. Maybe not cannibal, but above these. Tribal wisdom, you can eat uh, insects like you would if you were using cannibal, but you also gain points of resistance, which in the grand scheme of things is not that crazy because you can craft. You can have a lot more poison resistant ailments in this game in comparison to like radiation, right? Which is what makes me put the resistance perk in reliable instead of just perk point waste. And the stay back is just better version of this. It is better than this. Yep. So this, you know how I said that Super Slam was super buff for dealing with enemies up close? Imagine that, but with a shotgun, and you can change ammo types and different weapons. It's just the whole thing, and then the fact that it's every pellet that counts towards it. You basically have like a near guarantee knockdown almost every time. It's really wild. Animal Friend. And the thing with Animal Friend, it is like one of those perks that I would think that adds a little bit to the game functionally, right? But there's just it's the same problem that it has with the Hunter perk. There's only so many animals in Fallout New Vegas that you need to be worried about until you're doing way too much, you know. And the reason why it doesn't go at least into reliable is because you need 2 perk points to get the full capacity of this perk. And then even at that extent, it doesn't work that great. And a lot of people either like confused with like, oh, why does it sound like this, or why don't we attack each other? It's like a bunch of people confused about how this perk works. Sorry, I switched up my S's there, but yeah. Fight the Power is just a better version of this. Is it a perk point wasted? Not necessarily. Is it better than any of these? Yeah. like here. The thing with it is that it is 5% crit chance with the most of all the major players, so there's no situation where you're not going to want to lose this, right? But there's just so many other perks that you'll also pick over it, right? Unless you're doing like a full like demolition. Oh, I'm an anarchist. I'm gonna blow literally everyone up. Like hated reputation by everyone, and you use this perk. Like then that works, but you need to be in a specific mood for it, and it does help as an additive. But there's other perks that also work as additives that are better than this. That than fight the power. The reference is cool though. Finesse. Um, I think finesse might be an always pick. Even if you're not doing a crit build, there's just nothing bad about getting crits like every so often than you would normally, right? If even if you have luck 1, you now have like plus 6% chance for every strike, and then depending on every weapons, that's actually like a sizable bonus to your damage per second. Of course, you'd rather use this with like luck 10, all the critical chance enhancers and whatnot. But at the end of the day, it's like free. It's level 10. There's not much else to it. It's so simple, so effective. Like it's just good in general. I think even the perk that this is based on in Fallout 1 is that good, and it doesn't get that problem. So yeah, sorry, I was just checking out how this was looking. But yeah, Math Raf. I think I'll put Math Raf on the VATS because you only unless you're modded, you've modded your game to like add sprint, which I haven't. I mean, I have, but I don't have it on right now, and I'm just considering this like vanilla Fallout New Vegas as is right now. Like if you would just install um, mods just to make it work, like the 4 GB patcher and stuff, and sort of utility perks and nothing like else to like those perks that you can change all about your game to make it like standard to you. Like I don't care. I like vanilla New Vegas as is, and I haven't modded it at all basically. But yeah, just 10% lower costs for everything is just really good for VATS players of all kinds. It's basically the always pick version of the VATS category. Misfortune. It is really neat, but sadly, it is not reliable. It is better than a few of these, definitely. I actually need to put it in VATS because I'm smart. The thing about Misfortune is that you only get her with VATS, and then her effects are random. Even if she does kill it, it is more fun, but it is less reliable than Mysterious Ranger, which alright just shoots them to death and kills them better. Even though those two can be buggy, and they have like a horrendous. Even if I rate, if I make a tier list rating the challenges for this uh, game, and then I have to like rate the challenge where it's like, oh, get the Mysterious Stranger or Misfortune 20 times. What is that? Mentally insane. That's so crazy. Whoever made that challenge, go to a mental hospital. Anyways, Mr. Sandman. I did actually use this in Fallout 3, so I believe it has the same functionality. But just the problem with it is that it's like such a roleplay thing. It is better than the roleplay things here, right? But it's like the bonus XP doesn't give me much. It doesn't like, oh, you can like do something to the body to like hide it, and then nobody. If this was like Fallout 4 and then they had like multiple perk levels, this could be like, oh, you get to kill someone, and then people don't see the body when they go to sleep, right? Because you just did it that well. Like that would be sick, but unfortunately, that's just not how it works. So Nerd Rage, it is one of those perks where you take a lot of damage and then you get a bonus if you're at a certain amount of health. The bonus is noticeable. It is damage resistance, strength, and whatnot. But I mean, are you really waiting to get to that level of health to make use out of this? No, you might as well just grab other perks that like let you kill the enemies quicker, and then if you have to be on the back pedal and then you know like fight enemies at a certain part, like just fucking. I'm sorry for apologizing so much, but just I don't know, do something about your health situation so you don't have to rely on a bonus to make your character actually work, you know? And I'm pretty sure that's not their intent, but it just kind of feels like it with how it's implemented so bluntly and it's so kind of amateur, honestly. Just like, oh yeah, you get a bunch of bonuses at 50% health. That is it. It is better than these. Yeah, yeah. This is more. This is consistent. Night person has the same problem. Like unless you want to play the game around being like this applies to the nerd rage too. If you want to play the game at around being like at 50% health at all times or be at night at all times, then yeah, like you just straight up have just like more special points at all times. But just the fucking lengths they have to go to do that are so extravagant that it's not worth it to me. At least this one is like just straight up just 2 points to everything. But you also, I mean, not everything, but this is more consistent than this, and you don't put yourself at a risk. Plasma Spaz, yet again another perk like this. I feel like I'll put it like above these, but not above the other ones. Like this is consistent, right? But only for plasma weapons, not energy weapons. That's kind of sad. Also, I'm sorry, British people, from using plasma spaz because it's apparently this is a slur over there. Uh, where did I put this? Like here? I mean, there are like really good plasma weapons, but they're not like the best one. They're not the best energy weapons. Alertness is very disappointing. It's more or less like here, like in between being kind of like roleplay ish and functional. It is a little bit leaving to be desired. Yeah, alertness. Molecular instinct is another one. Fast metabolism. Here's the thing about it. Honestly, not here. I think that the very bottom of like straight good because more often than not, there's no playthrough unless you're doing like a complete challenge playthrough where you use no stim packs, where you don't use it at least once on accident or just out of necessity. So if you're able to do this with your character, and they just no, this is just more healing for free. But it's not like stim packs are the all and be all of healing in this game, and that's something to note about it. But regardless of that, that's the most common way, and there's a lot of stim packs in this game that you just get from collecting and being good managing your health. Ghastly Scavenger is just a worse version of this, honestly. Yeah, no, even no. Um, I'll have something to say about perception later on, but Cannibal just gives you more things to eat, and it's like cool for kind of role playing, but not really. Tribal gives you like the actual bonus, but it's way less applicable, and then the poison is not that big of a deal. Then Ghastly Scavengers is full on role playing. Like the lengths they have to go to eat a feral ghoul is just kind of impressive, or a mutant. Those are kind of impressive, right? But you don't get any like bonus healing. Like you don't get higher healing from Ghastly Scavengers that you get out of Cannibal or something of the sort. And I'm pretty sure there's no perk attached to it like there is for Dine and Dash or the Meet of the Champions or anything, which kind of makes it disappointing. But it's still cool that it's there. That if you want to be given the option to eat to eat just mutants or Feragul's exclusively, just like a roleplay as a zombie or something, but just yeah, with mods. I know that I'm not counting with mods, but just like your brain doing that part of it. Um, I'm pretty sure this is not weapons handling. I'm pretty sure this is the one that it makes all big weapons weigh 10 pounds less, which I guess I would put it at like really build dependent, like over here. If you do like, if you are playing like explosives, where a bunch of the explosives weapons are like 20 pounds or more, or just big guns in general. Like, there's nothing bad about this, and you could use this with a lot of other weapons, but it really just depends on what you're doing. Like, it's one of the more I'd say applicable build dependent ones, if that makes any sense. Even though this kind of gatekeeps it. But yeah, this this one. Uh, I mean, what is the downside to it though? I'd imagine that the only thing that you'd say about this is like, oh, but you need like high explosives. But yeah, you need high explosives, and then you just get like, I need to check it. It's like an insane amount of damage resistance against explosives, and you don't need to like do anything special about it. But and get um you just get you just require just so much out of it. Yeah, no, hit the deck. 25 DT. That's so sizable. Especially, it's not like like the most challenging enemies are using explosives, but explosives are like one of the most annoying kinds of weapons to fight against if enemies are wielding it. So it definitely equals the playing field, and I feel like every kind of character can get something out of this. Like, if someone in the comments or somewhere tell me like if there's a situation where this is not helpful. I'm waiting. Crippler. I really like the perk image for this. Uh, but yeah, it's gonna here. Life Giver. Life Giver is one of these strange ones where it's like it's so like subtle and like straight to the point. But is there anything that you get like that's bad out of like not, you know, just having more health? Not really. You have to heal less. You can take more damage. Just like the problem with this is that there's so many other perks that I pick up along the way if I'm playing a certain type of character that if I'm picking up Life Giver, I've either like emptied the barrel worth of perks. Keep in mind, New Vegas only has 25 perks, so out of all of these, you only can pick 25 per character if you play to level 50, which not everyone does. So I don't actually pick this that often, but I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. You just need to have a brain and realize that having more health is better than not having that much more health. It is like, very lesser in comparison to all of these. But yeah. Yeah. Here and now, just complete waste. I won't even touch on it that much. Just besides for the fact that you're wasting a perk just to get a level up. If you're that desperate to level up, then you just fucking cheat or like cheese the game to get a bunch of XP. Long haul. I don't think I've actually seen anyone talk about this perk if it's not in the context of talking about like fast traveling with all the Sierra Madre gold bars. And I've had quite a few situations where I would be logging around too much and I have to like leave an item behind. And I wish I could just fast travel back and and not have to deal with the wait. But at the same time, like, how often does that happen that I have to waste an entire perk on like an inconvenience, right? I mean, no. It's more like here. Yeah. Piercing strike is just so good for unarmed, even if unarmed is not like the best. Why am I moving this? Wait, did I pick up? No, I picked up Pyromaniac somehow. I guess I can just talk about Pyromaniac right after because I don't have much to say. It's just more. It just ignored 10 damage threshold with melee and unarmed. It's just straight to the point. Just straight good, but just for a specific kind of character. Uh, yeah, and Pyromaniac, you can make you can make fire weapons really, really, really good. That's about it. Robotics expert. I think it's one of like the better like damage ones. To be completely frank, I put it like above all the other ones. I wouldn't put it above the general ones still because there's only so many robot enemies in the game. Silent running is build dependent, but it can definitely really really help if you're playing like a certain. If you're playing sneak, if you're playing for a sneak, you can basically just avoid having to like like slow to a crawl every time you want to like walk around with while crouched, and you can just crouch walk like while running, so like crouch running basically. It's weird because if you're walking in Vegas you don't really realize it, but like the game sets your like default walk to run, and like when you're like just walking regularly, that's running, and then if you press tab and you start walking just really slowly, that's what the game considers walking. It's really weird, but yeah, it just lets you cross run into the game standards, and it speeds up the pace for uh, sneak characters just so much. The sniper is the better version of these two, at least for usability. Atomic. This is a. Oh no, Atomic is the other one. This is Atomic. The icon looks almost the same, but a little bit different. This is yeah, just while Demolition Expert makes your character deal more explosive damage, this just increases the area effect, which you could argue is a little bit worse for like self damage, but like you're already conscious enough to be using explosives, so if you're gonna damage yourself, just like And on that same page, Atomic pairs really well for Red Child, so I'm gonna put it right next to it. Because also I'm gonna put silent running really low because even though stealth kills are really powerful in this game and you can basically just go around with nobody detecting you, sneaking is just so unreliable that I prefer to do other stuff instead. But yeah, atomic just gives you bonuses for being irradiated. You wouldn't think you can use that much. You can use it that much, but if you eat coyote steaks, which I think it's pretty much one of the only items that you can consume, and it gives you rads over time. It just doesn't give you rads for a second, and you can use that to uh, just activate this bonus whenever. And if you're in irradiated areas, on top of already having rad child, it just like a higher numbers of rads just means that you can get better action point regeneration, faster attacks, faster moving speed, just all good. And what holds it back is the radiation poisoning of it as well. Unstoppable force. To be completely fair, unstoppable force, even though for like breaking through opponent's armor, that's really strong. Not armor, but like their block and just doing quadruple damage on their block. So basically negating their block as you're fighting them, which is really strong. It's so unnecessary though, because if you're actually fighting enemies in melee combat, you're already like at a rhythm of like blocking and defending and then catching them where they're blocking. And if you play your cards right, you can basically just kill an enemy if you stagger them or if you hit them after they stop blocking, and if you make them cripple one of their limbs, or if you make them run away, the fight's basically over by then. But it's just so over the top with the 4 times damage. Where I think one of the developers is going crazy. And it is like a neat addition, but I don't think it's not necessary in the grand scheme of things. Adamantium skeleton. It's another weird one. Like, yeah, it is kind of like a perk that you have to like make up room for, but like getting crippled limbs is like one of the most annoying mechanics, and that's in a good way. I don't mean that to complain. If I complain about anything in this tier list, saying, "Oh, these guys are annoying," or this mechanic sucks, it's still in like kind of a good way because it adds to the charm of the game and just how you're supposed to be playing it. And having less, you have to deal with crippled limbs less because of this is just so nice. What brings it down a little bit is the fact that you can get the old world blues perks that just stop you from getting crippled by enemies at all, which kind of takes the usability of this less. But it's not all the. It's still, you can still get your legs crippled above all else, and having crippled legs apart from having crippled head, which gives the fuzzy screen effect. Crippled legs is just the most noticeable one in your own gameplay. So if you manage to avoid that, it's still just always, if you can pick it, there's nothing good with not with choosing it. Center mass is kind of debatable because I never actually used it, but if it works, it works, right? Chemist, I think from what I've seen, this is like one of the more underrated perks from this game because from what the wiki says, and the telltale of believing video game wikis when they're wrong, but what it says is that if you just use any item that has an effect over time with uh, chemist, it just lasts longer, and that applies to literally everything, not just drugs. So chems, food, healing, uh, healing stuff like stim packs and super stim packs and right away, like everything that has a timer to it just gets doubled. And even if it didn't stack, just the fact that it just does so much well. Even if it didn't stack, it would be like here, but because it does stack, I'm assuming that it works the way that the wiki does. If it doesn't, just imagine that it's more like here, right? I'm gonna put it up here. Jury rigging, you know, jury rigging in general, I think is really good for what it is. It just eliminates a a big part of having to fix your weapons in your game. If you know how to play it well, you don't necessarily need to fix your weapons all the time because you either have the vendors set up that you can just pay caps for and then you have all the money in the world so you don't have to worry about going out for weapons to repair, or you have all the repair kits in the world so you don't have to worry about money. But on both angles, right? Jury rigging still helps a lot within it at any point in the playthrough. It just really depends on if you are using, you know, weapons at all, which maybe you're doing a pacifist playthrough, or maybe you're doing like a fists only, which at that point, unless your arms broke from so much punching, which they don't, then you wouldn't need this. Um, Light step. I've seen people like praise this perk, and in all honesty, I do see the effect of it. I just think it just gets talked about so much because people don't care to pay attention to the traps in this game. Like they haven't played enough to remember where they are. And if you do, then you don't need this. But it's always nice to have. And in some situations, the game can trip you up, like the mines are invisible or something because of a rendering glitch, and then you can't see it until it's too late, and you get like an arm and two legs broken, and not of your own fault. So it does, has a point. I just don't see it that often because I remember. Incredibly, one of the things I do remember. Purifier. Straight up just makes melee good. I think is above this, but not above this. Uh, it's above Unstoppable First, but below Piercing Strike. Action Boy and Action Girl, just top of VATS tier. You need action points to be able to use VATS, and just having more action points in general is nothing they can scoff at. On top of that, I think I'll add Grim Reaper Sprint, Grim Reaper Sprint on top of it to make it even better. Better criticals. I have to relent and not just say always pick because I always pick this personally, and I might have to reorder this. Like thinking about it, like you know, like well, this right. Because if I want to be in all honesty, right, critical chance is only a chance versus guaranteed carry weight, guaranteed walk speed, better skill points, better health, better survivability. You only add it on top, but just because of how much it affects your gameplay on top, is just so good. Um, Chem resistant. If you have, there's things that gets rid of this, like there's the heartless and cardiac arrest in new and old world blues that kind of invalidates the not the radiation. Sorry, it invalidates that mechanic, but also just the fact that you do generally like not have to worry that much about being addicted unless you're role playing a character that needs to be addicted all the time. You won't pick this, and you can use fix or use a doctor for like a not a few dozen, but like 50, 70 caps to fix your addiction, or 100 caps to fix your addiction, which it shouldn't be that much unless you're completely new to the game and you don't know what you're doing. Um, I guess it would be build dependent. Uh, yeah, maybe like at bottom of here. Um, this is kind of broken. But what is it called? It's like it's not pulverizer. I keep forgetting what it's called. It's the one that if you kill an enemy with an energy weapon, it just explodes them to a blazing glory of guts and it kills everything. Yeah, no, this got a fucked. Honestly, yeah, I might have to relent and put these two on top, like here and here. God, me actually having to be fair about it and not biased, it's so weird. Also, this feels so evil, right? Just having the one broken perk that doesn't work in here alone by itself, but I'll get to it. This is weapons handling. It just makes you have like two less strength requirement for whatever weapon you need. Uh, I would say it's like more useful than a bunch of these. Yeah, but it's still really reliable. Like if you don't want to raise your strength, which is really easy, and thinking just about all the ways they can increase it with perks and DLCs and stuff. But if you don't want to deal with that, it's just very reliable. Tag is the epitome of like almost good because it is just plus 15 points, but you could also spend plus 15 points on something if you already have the amount of intelligence to spend it on that. And also the thing I said before about like overt overtly having like way too many skill points to know what you're doing or what you could do with these two, right? The hacker man and the locksmith master. Both of these they have a very solid idea, and I just think that you're unless you're like you have to be trying to be super fair to the game. You're like, oh, if I do this, then I'm not gonna reload a save if I fail a hacking attempt. I'm not gonna quit out of it and then wait, or I'm not gonna reload a save after I pick this lock and then force it and it breaks. It's just so like forcibly on yourself, which is like, I think it's one of the only situations where like I put it like where it actually makes your game worse. At least for me, because in that sort of situation, you need to like forcibly make yourself like play the game in a specific way that's less fun. Concentrated fire is right here, I think. In terms of, nah, yeah, no, it's like up here. You basically just guarantee more VATS hit chance, which is always good. Same thing with paralyzing palm. It is really good just to have like the chance of like the same way that these two they give a chance to just kill the enemy on top. This just gives you a chance to kill an enemy for free. Knocking down enemies in this game is so good, just for any sort of situation, either for combat or if you're playing pacifist and you're running away. This one, right? I'll put it right next to alertness, the Walker Instinct, because I think that I think I have a take, and I think that most people wouldn't agree with me. But I think perception is even more useless than charisma in this game, right? And let me explain. If we don't take into account the skill point increases, strength raises your melee damage and it raises your carrying capacity. Endurance raises your base health, your resistance against radiation, against poisoning, and it gives you like a really useless healing rate stat that I bet nobody knows about, but it's still there. Charisma gives your companions more damage and damage resistance. Intelligence gives you skill points. Agility gives you faster reload and holster drawing speeds. Uh, it doesn't make you walk faster, by the way. I don't know why people believe that. And luck just increases your points by one every half point of luck that you have, or every not every half point, every odd numbered point that you have in luck. You know what perception does? It makes the blip on your map um, show up a little bit, not even on your map, on your compass. It makes the enemy blip on your compass show a little bit earlier than it would have normally. And if you have Eddie, then you don't need it because that's basically just having perception 10, so I don't get it. So these fucking perception perks are just so worthless, honestly. Even below the other ones where they're like, you need to be in a specific situation to make it work. You're role playing to like the degree that it's like actually stopping you from enjoying the game as much. And I think it's kind of sad for that. But at least they fought. Like, at least the developers thought that they had something. Uh, yeah, I hope that so far, there anyone that has been watching these or has been watching this at all has been enjoying it. And we're almost at the end. But yeah, uh, Explorer is really useless if you know the layout of the game. If you don't, it's really good. It's good for your first playthrough, but after the first playthrough is like here. Eye for Eye is actually not that bad, I think. It's far from reliable in the usual sense, but it's not completely useless. Like you can make it work, especially if you're doing like a energy weapon, not energy weapons, explosives build. My apologies. Um, just thinking about it. Yeah, I guess I can leave it there. This is really wasteful. It's another one where you need to make space for this. Ninja is really. The fact with Ninja is that it gives such a small critical multiplier. It's supposed to give 15, but it only gives 1.15 because of a typo. It still does give melee strikes like it still does give critical strikes with melee and unarmed like a lot more damage though, which is notable into itself. So I won't harp on it too much. I'll just leave it here with the silent running. Solar powered is really a meme. It's like basically here. It gives you healing, but might as well just heal from any other sources than waiting out in the fucking sun. Them's good eating is really reliable. I think you're straight good. At some point in the game, you're basically just even if you're not in hardcore, you're just giving yourself a chance to leave enemies that give you weightless items that heal a lot in place of stim packs, and they sell for a lot if you're not using them. So there's no reason not to use this unless you're doing a specific kind of character. But I don't think it's an always pick. Another one, Irradiated Beauty. It's another sleeping perk that if you go sleep, it just removes rads. At least it's better than this, but not by that much. This is, I think, the better ones of the bed perks, like the sleepy head perks. You can make like a sleepy head build, and all that you do is just sleep every day. Um, you just get well rested, I think, from any bed, is what it does. But like, at what point are you at this in this game? Like level 30 something? I don't remember. But it's so late into the game, you don't need the XP bonus all the time. Laser Commander is one of the one of the best energy weapons perks because most of the best energy weapons are laser, and they do get affected from this. Just plus 15 critical chance. and just straight up just better damage is really good. Nuka Chemist is overall like a very flavored perk, not because it's any good, but just because it's done for the sake of getting the player to craft the Nuka Cola types that they added. But at the same time, the only thing that you could actually use this for is making Nuka Cola grenades that you can actually craft if you don't have like go look out in the wild for Nuka Cola. And lessons learned is probably like the worst case of a Swift learner. Because at least with Swift learner, you can do it like at level 2. You can only use wait, is lessons learned? No, this is lessons learned. This book just gives you blank books that you can use for like magazines and stuff. It's like here-ish. No. Actually, no, it is there. Yeah, right there. Lessons learned is just a way worse version of Swift learning because you get it way later on, even if it multiplies with your current level. Like it's just so unnecessary. That's something I've forgotten to mention, by the way. If you're at level 50, all the perks that increase your XP gain are useless. And that's why here and now is like the least one because you don't get actively anything with it and you waste the perk slot. And Swift Learner is so low to me because even if you make it to the end of the game or like to a point that you're uh, happy with it, you can't respec. So that perk that just gives you XP, even though you can't get XP anymore, it just stays there and your character's just gonna be weaker for it. Even if the perk that you would have chosen in place is like Bloody Mess or something, just plus 5% damage. Plus 5% damage is still plus 5% damage against the perk that at the very end of the game could do nothing. And that's a valid critique of something like comprehension and educated, because at some point you just don't need skill points anymore, even if you don't level up to the max. But if you do level up to the max level, you don't need skill points anymore. So that's something that, yeah, kind of holds them back. It's just their application that I think makes them straight good. But in comparison, the application of here just makes it so much to be desired. Is it worse than any of these? Right here. Um, Actually, that was ferocious loyalty. This is basically the same thing. It just makes your companions take less damage from you. It's basically the same perk, but a little bit different. But this is better, like slightly. Slayer is very build dependent, but it's really, really, really good for melee builds. Nerves of Steel, you get this for Regenerating AP, and it's almost in the same boat for this, but it's way better, I think, for that. It's like I value overall just having more AP to play with, but regenerating action points faster. Regenerating your action points faster is just on top is better, but having more action points in general by lowering their cost, I think, is better. Um, but yeah, getting onto the last few perks here, Tunnel Runner is decent enough. Like, not build dependent. It's like over here ish. It's like over here. Yeah. Uh, this is red absorption. You just get health for having reds. I don't remember. No, I think I remember. It's like you get. I think you. It's the same thing with like irradiated beauty, but instead of sleep, you just do it really, really slowly. It's like 2 rats for like every 10 seconds, and like, you know, just pay a fucking doctor and then get healed. At that point, you're just wasting your time having to wait. It's like, yeah. Here, implant GRX. I don't use this because I don't use chems and all that stuff in the game that much. Even if this is not addictive, but this is just straight up good in any character. You need really high endurance for this, but if you can make it work, it's really valuable. Broad daylight just bugged, fucking sucks. I used to think that this perk was like okay-ish, but then I learned, and not even that it was okay-ish, it was just like mediocre. But then I saw a YouTube video by a guy called Bethesda Mods. I'll link it in the description. But he just explains how the sneaking works in this game. Like like engine wise, because he was trying to. Oh, sorry, my apologies. The thing with it is just the that the way that it works is just so dependent on lighting and stuff, and it makes stinking a lot harder to do. And he was just trying to do it to figure out why the ghost people were so hard to evade in New Vegas because of scripting stuff. But yeah, my apologies for my dog. But yeah, this perk just basically doesn't work for anything at all. This perk is I forget what it's called, but what it does is that it gives you like extra crit chance against robots, and it gives 75% to give more components once they're killed. But the problem is the crit part doesn't work. So if it worked, it would be like I don't know over here or over here. But just because it doesn't work, you only get like I don't know more scrap metal out of a robot that's already gonna give you scrap metal, which is still worthless. And it's kind of sad for that fact. But yeah. And on to the last free perks. We've done almost everything that we can or that we could to make all of our sessions fair. So let's take the last perks that the game ever gives you into consideration. They're the only perks that I'm aware of that use karma requirements in the entire game. So you do need them for that. And just rating them on usability, right? Just I think they're all almost of them are all always picks because you don't have anything else better to pick at level 50. But in short, uh, I think in consistency, I ain't like that. Ain't like that. Ain't like that now is just better. You get faster attack speed with everything. It's not even like faster melee swing. It's just faster attack speed with everything, faster action point regeneration, and you don't get crits anymore, or you don't get, or it's like a slight. You can't. You know how light touch stops you from getting critical hit by opponents by like 25%. This just stops you. Period. Same thing with Thought You Died. The bonus for it is a little bit more to be desired because of just how it works. Like if you end a fight with like less than 20% health, you get 10 plus. You get like 5 luck or something, which is like eh. But also it just gives you 50% better critical damage, which is the same thing as better criticals, and that on top of that is also just immune to crits. I thought you died is the most lacking of all of them. It gives you bonus health on top of having on it gives you bonus health and based on the amount of karma you have of good karma. But if you lose that health, you just can't get it back. I'm sure. I don't know how you're supposed to get it back, and you can't heal it through auto doctors or real doctors or anything, so it's really confusing. But you do get at least 10% damage, and it's guaranteed, and you also don't get crits anymore. So that is it. Those are all the perks rated. This tier list was made by Nick is a Neat on Twitter and also on YouTube. I hope that you guys enjoyed it. If you have any questions, leave any comments below. Uh, don't subscribe because I don't do any content that's worthwhile. But yeah, no, I think that's pretty much it. Have a good rest of your day.